Hey guys, so the new Velma trailer was released, and comments are off. Comments are off. Um, Now we all know this is going to be a complete waste of time. Right off the bat, the show was kind of shown to be hateful towards fans and just, you know, not in good faith. If you wanted to create a fun, alternate version of Scooby Doo where, things are a little darker, grittier, where murders actually happen, and that's fine. I think none of us would be opposed to seeing that kind of Scooby Doo. You look at the original series and all the series up to this point, and we always wish that there would have be some kind of darker, even though some of the episodes might have been a darker theme or tone, you never got you know gruesome images. It just felt uneasy, unnerving, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, because you still had your laugh track in there, you still had the zany antics going on by the group, and so no matter how dark it got, there was still some sort of, there's plenty of comic relief throughout the episode to be remember, like, oh hey, there's no real danger here. So something where there's actual murder and gore or something like that, I don't think any of us would be opposed to that kind of Scooby Doo. Going around having possible supernatural beings causing these kinds of horrific crimes, and Scooby and the gang trying to solve the case and try to put a stop to whoever's doing it, only to find that possibly most of it is just people in masks and costumes. But the one, like the movies, those always turn out great because in the movies the villains are real. The Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, those were real zombies. They weren't men in costumes. And when you have that real aspect to it, where, oh damn, these aren't people in costumes, these are real, it really ups that whole threat factor. And then you had with the witch's ghost, with not just people with paper and stuff like that. No, it was a real witch's ghost who could cast actual magic. So the stakes were so much higher because this was a fight for their lives. Because if they lost in this fight with this witch's ghost, they were dead. So the stakes were so much higher, and I would love to see a series like that. But when you have a series like this that already comes out and it's already in bad faith by attacking fans, and everyone's so worried about diversity and this and that, but they're taking characters that we love and they're just making them the worst possible versions of themselves. Now, what I loved about Scooby-Doo is they're trying to make this racially diverse, right? But Scooby-Doo was already diverse. They may not have been diverse racially, but look at the group. Look how diverse they were personality-wise. You have this group of 4 people, right? They are completely different from each other. Think of now these are teenage kids, apparently. Think of when you were in school. Most of us wouldn't imagine being able to hang out with someone like Fred or Daphne if we were someone like Velma. We would never do it. We would never be able to. Now, when I was in high school, I mean, I had friends of every group. I respect them, they respect me, where it's all good. But some people who are more like Velma, like, I can't even imagine having a friend like Daphne or Fred, someone who, high society and, can hang out with all the beautiful people and do all these things and so talented and this and that. But yet you have these 4 people who are completely different personality-wise coming together, and despite their differences and all that, they've come together for their love of solving mysteries. And while Freddy is cocky Daphne is, very conceited, very self-absorbed. Um, Shaggy, of course, is the scaredy cat, but they all have their moments. Like Shaggy comes through and saves the group several times. Um, but like Fred and Daphne, despite their bad parts of them, are they bad people? No, and they genuinely care for Velma and Shaggy, two people who, again, think about your time in high school. You would never really see those kinds of people hanging out together. So they do genuinely care about Velma and Shaggy, and even though they're not racially diverse, you have a very diverse personality wise group of people, and I've always thought that was amazing, and just the dynamic between all the characters, that's what makes them so beloved. Why the characters have stayed the same since the 60s, because it works. But now they're taking these characters and changing their character, their personality, and just making them like the worst versions of themselves. And it's they're doing it to just spite the fans. And we've seen this over and over again. When you have a new product and you're trying to sell it, the last thing you want to do is spite and go off and all that to the 95 or more like 98% of the people who this is actually should be directed towards. It's like Lord of the Rings. Are some normal people going to watch Lord of the Rings? Of course. But who is the general audience going to be? It's going to be the fans. And when you come out and say, oh, it's going to be this way, and if you don't like it, don't, and you come out and attack the fans, you're only doing more harm to yourself. You're only doing more harm, and I think this comes out today or tomorrow, but it's just, the again, it's a typical lazy art style. The characters are, like I said, the worst versions of themselves. Because there's like, if they want a grittier, that's fine, but there's still a way to do it and make these characters themselves. You don't have to turn them into the worst versions of themselves. You don't have to turn them to something. Basically, they're just, as far as I'm concerned, these are people who are just cosplaying as the characters, because none of them are how they actually are supposed to be. Through all the media of Scooby-Doo, all the times they've been portrayed, they've always been consistent with the character. And now all of a sudden we have something like this where, especially look at the live action ones, they could have been completely different, but no, they stuck true to the characters of who they were in the TV show. But when you're doing this just oh, we got you fans, you freaking nerds, care so much about this stuff. Well, if you don't like it, then don't watch it. Well, they know they've done Goofed, and no one wants it because they disabled comments. In fact, you go to the first trailer, and like most of the comments are like, yeah, the second trailer, turn the comments off. People are talking about the ratio, how there's like 300,000 downvotes and like several little like 1,000 or two upvotes. It's something that people weren't asking for this. People didn't care about anything like this. When people want Scooby-Doo, we want Scooby-Doo. Not some sort of Scooby-Doo cosplay with people who are the worst versions of the characters, trying to be edgy and dark for, and again, why? Like I said before, they may not have been racially diverse in the show, but just how vastly different personality wise, that was so much more. Because we see a lot of shows where everyone generally has, kind of close to the same personality in some sort of way. You know, in Scooby-Doo, again, most of us could never imagine hanging out with someone like Fred or Daphne. You know, those people were completely out of our league. Um, but it, and then once this fails, it's gonna fail, and then it's gonna come out to the whole, you know, what we've heard so many times, oh, the racists and this and that. Instead of accepting the fact that you made a show and intentionally went out of your way to insult fans, they're gonna put that shield up, like, no, it's the racists, it's this, it's that, it's the man babies. Or how about you just stop attacking fans? How about you make a good show? Stop race swapping, stop gender swapping. No one's asking for it, except for the 1% of weirdos on Twitter, and just stay true. The characters have worked since the 60s. It's been around for that long. Why stop now? Which just, this kind of proves the point. They've worked for a reason. Suddenly you change the characters, no one wants to watch it. No one cares about it because it's not what we want. Again, if they wanted to make a grittier version, whatever, but you can still keep the characters true to themselves. You know, they don't have to be super dark, gritty, edgy to fit into the world. But just keep the characters the same. Even the live action ones didn't mess it up. You know? I mean, Matthew Lillard was so good at Shaggy, at portraying him, he went on to do the voice for years because of how he embodied Shaggy. You know? Just stop. It's not that hard to just stick to the source material. It's not. Especially something that's been around for as long as Scooby-Doo. The characters worked for a reason. People like the characters for a reason. Their personalities don't change for a reason. I mean, you can relate, you know, in the cartoon and the other ones, you can relate to Shaggy. You can relate to Velma. You can relate to them. Here, you won't be able to relate to anyone because they're all the worst versions of themselves. You're going to see this Velma, you're not going to say, oh yeah, I can totally relate to her. No, because she seems like a bitter, mean-spirited version of Velma, who is nothing like that. You see Daphne, and, you know, you're so used to, yeah, she's like the damsel in distress, and while, yes, she is sometimes very superficial, she does have a good heart, but here, it's like, she's a complete bitch. And you just don't relate to these characters anymore because they're not those characters anymore. Like they're cosplay. Like I said, it's like cosplay. These are just people like in the show that's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna dress up as these characters. But HBO Max, you know you've done goofed because you turned the comments off. No one asked for this. No one wants to see it. You changed the source material so much. These characters are not these characters anymore. And when the show bombs, which it will, you have no one to blame. You came out of the gate mean-spirited. You went after fans. When it starts getting reviewed and you have like 2-3% on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, don't say it's racism. Don't say it's the man babies. You only have yourselves to look at. You only have yourselves to blame because you took an IP, something that's been around since the 60s that people adore, and you just completely flipped it into something that people don't recognize and can't relate to anymore. So, no, you're bigots, you're racist, you're this, you're that. No. How about you turn that mirror and look at yourselves? You're the ones who did it, not the fans. You're trying to appease the 1% of weirdos who care about the diversity and all that crap. Okay, so, but what do we know? Anyway, that's going to do it for me. You guys know the drill. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.